Hello, welcome back to the Live Reality Game Podcast. My name is Steven Stewart, and I'm here with another episode of Behind the Game. Here today, we're going to talk about Survivor Angelica and dive into the history of Survivor Angelica, one of the longest live reality games out there, with its founding in 2002. And to help me do that, I have a large chunk of the Angelica production team, which I'm super excited by. And so, one by one, can you introduce yourselves and say, who are you? What's your role in Survivor Angelica? How did you get involved? And let's start with host Jason Cernas, who is muted.
You're muted, Jason.
Jason's still muted.
None of us can hear you right now. And then, do you want to jump to Jason Crandell while the other Jason gets that figured out?
So my name's Jason. I'm one of the newer people on the crew. I got involved with my wife, who's been around since the very beginning of it, Valerie. I kind of got thrown into it. Decided at one point I wanted to play. Didn't go well at all. I don't even want to remember that season. But right now I help out with, I do the building of the challenges and visual elements along with my wife. And she says build it, and I figure it out.
Jason Cernas, is your audio working now? It's still no. It was. We swear it was working ahead of time. It was only once the podcast started decided it did not work.
Nope.
Still got nothing. Brett, in the meantime, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I'm Brett. It's probably been about 4 years since I've been involved between playing and helping with crew and production. So my role with production is just that, production. So the filming, been put in charge of just trying to figure out logistics of that. And then I do all the editing of the episodes as well. Oh, and so actually I'll go a step further. How I got involved is actually through Jason Cernas. We actually played in a hockey league together, and he was always promoting it and trying to get people to play. This is maybe 6-7 years ago. And so I finally gave it a go one year and applied and sort of been hooked ever since.
Jason Crandell and Brett, were you fans of Survivors prior to playing, or would you become a fan of Survivor as a result of playing Survivor Angelica?
I really like the challenge. I can appreciate the actual gameplay. I just know that I'm not good at it because I've tried. But I really enjoy the whole challenge aspect of everything. And that's why I'm always looking to find the next best thing to, bring to the table to these guys and us as a group, coming up with new challenges that, nobody's seen. Or, seeing something on TV that we could adjust to our own game. And
host Jason, is your audio working? You're good.
I have no idea. I swear every time I do one of these, I have a problem.
So for me, real quick on that question, that's actually a good question because it did coincide with me getting back into Survivor, the CBS version. So I watched the very first season as a young kid with my family and was really into it. It was huge, back in the day. And just as a kid, I never really tuned into another season, would always see the promos and everything. So I jumped in, probably caught up on CBS Survivor back around 2015. And that was just around the time that Jason Cernas here was trying to get people to play Angelica. So it coincided together pretty perfect for me.
So Jason, do you want to go for it?
Let's try it. Mm-hmm. So obviously, being host now for the last several years, I got my feet in the door by playing the game a few times very early on. I think 2008, 2009, somewhere there. Had a great experience with it. Met a lot of great people. Obviously, the faces that are here today I met, and many others. And it really hooked me on the game. the experience was a lot of fun, and it just brought out a whole different side of me that, you know, I really didn't know that I had. It forces you to learn a lot about yourself. Even these short games, you know, ours is 3 days, but it really changes somebody. And we always preach that to everyone that plays. Like, we're kind of like a big family, and it's just like on the real show. We like the cast members from year after year after year are constantly still out there in the world, meeting with old cast members, new cast members, going to, you know, episode viewings and parties at, you know, all across the country. And it's just like that for us. Like, we see the faces, we see the names, we talk. So I just reached out to crew and just said, like, I want to be part of this however I can be. And I think I started doing some camera work, helping out with like just challenge help and things like that. And eventually we kind of started to switch gears a little bit, and people started to lean on me and say, hey, you might make a great host. You should give it a shot. And we tried it. I had a great time with it. I enjoy it, and it's kind of stuck ever since. We've, you know, had some other hosts, and everybody does a great job. We all have, you know, our own different ways about it that bring great things to the game. So I love it. I have fun with it, and I hope to keep doing it as long as they want me to do it.
And then last but certainly not least, Chris, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so how I got into it, I actually got into it because my wife, Elisa, was on the crew. So probably about 12 years ago now, 10, 12 years ago, somebody either bailed on camera or we were looking for extra camera at the time, and I kind of hopped in and filled in there. I think I did film Cernus here winning the second time he won, I believe, before he was full-fledged crew. But you know, I joined it all the way back then. It was a lot of camera work at the time, but you know, in real life, I do a lot of operations and project management type work, and I've kind of found my way into that role on our crew. We kind of divide up game operations and production, and then, you know, cast and contestant outreach and things like that. And you know, at this point, you know, I lean into the game operations side of things and kind of coordinate our planning ceremonies, and you know, we have a lot of different type of documentation and things like that we use to get us to the weekend. So that's where I kind of fit into the crew.
I have to ask a documentation question. What do you use to keep everything organized?
Right now, we're just using Google Docs and Sheets and stuff like that, so we could keep it all in one place that everyone can contribute to, you know, wherever they are, whenever they are able to get in. So right now, we're just using Google Drive and Google Docs and Sheets and stuff like that.
So I want to dig a little into the history game. It sounds like from everyone here, everyone joined production anywhere from 12 years to 3 or 4 years ago. So it sounds like none of you were there in the first year it began in 2002.
No.
So your website says Survivor Angelica was founded by a small group of friends with a passion for Survivor, strategy games, and a good time. Can you elaborate more about the origin of Survivor Angelica in those first seasons?
Yeah. So, you know, both my wife, Elisa, and Crandall's wife, Val, were involved earlier in the process. But Kurt and Brian Klein are really the godfathers of Survivor Angelica. And they were huge Survivor fans and also huge into videography. And those two came together and they just started doing it for fun, really. It started as a friends and family network thing, and that's how it rolled for several years. A really long time. There was a lot of repeat players. You know, everyone would kind of tell friends and things like that, and it would cycle around, and you know, they kind of get together. They would swap off being hosts. There was, you know, maybe one or two others in there in the early stages, and you know, they just love to videotape stuff. And you know, back at that time, you know, after the actual weekend, there would be a viewing party, and it was a VHS tape. And you know, it would,
which I don't know. I don't know if I've told you, Chris, but I have a copy of now.
Yeah.
I have a copy of the very first one.
Now, do you have a VCR player?
Can't watch it
Someday.
but we got it. Yeah, so that's really, how it started, and and I think, Jason Crandall mentioned earlier, once we found that LRG community, and the fact that we had no idea a whole bunch of other people were doing the same thing. It was like, wow, okay. But we were kind of silly to not think that, given given the following and everything. But once we found the online community and kind of opened up, the doors, so to speak, it really took off.
So I got to ask, like, when did you discover like there are other games out there? We're not alone.
Actually, I think it was cameraman Mike discovered it. He texted the group one day. It was like, "Hey, I just saw this whole LRG website. Are you guys on this?" Or like, we have no idea about it.
Yeah,
So,
probably 5 or 6 years ago, I would say.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Yep. He sent a link to, I think, another game somewhere, and then I started to dive a little deeper into it on social media, just searching Survivor anything, and all of a sudden these different games from across the country start popping up with their Survivor names, and it was like Survivor Reelfoot, Survivor Maine, and I'm like, what are all these games we didn't know about? Here we are, this little community that we never knew existed, but did exist, I guess, and so then we found the live reality games kind of community too, like the actual, page. And then once we got into that, you start interacting with other hosts and other games, and next thing you know, we're communicating and just networking like crazy with each other to, expand each other's games and support each other. And I think that's the other great thing about the community is we're all here for the same purpose, and we all want to see each other succeed. So it's nice that there's no like real foes out there. We're all allies together, just trying to create the best environment and game for these people to enjoy. And it's awesome to see all these just different games going crazy, and themes and ideas and challenge creations and their interpretations that they do of challenges. So it's really cool.
And we've gotten out there so much more. We say our people person is Jason Cernas. He's the one that throws the feelers out everywhere, and that's probably why we're here right now.
Yeah, and now I kind of took the reins for a little while, just whatever social media reach I could do. And by no means am I a pro, and now we have Brett, who can really create and produce, authentic, just great quality stuff and put it out there. And he has the means and the access to do, the reach that we need. And it takes it to almost a whole nother level, professional level, that really gives us some viewership and reach. So, Brett is really kicking us to the next level now.
Yeah, because one thing that's interesting about Survivor Angelica, it sounds like from the start, filming the seasons was a thing. Like that wasn't an attack on, that was a large part of it, a large part of the inspiration given how you described the founders. And even on your website, you have footage back from I think as early as 2006. You have 2006 game strategy interviews. So it's been a large part of it. The past 3 years, you've really upped the editing and creation of the episodes. Talk to me about the desire to do that and what it took to accomplish it.
I guess I'll go on that one. So my background is in digital marketing. I own a digital marketing agency. So kind of like Chris on how his career sort of lent him towards the role that he has with Survivor Angelica, kind of the same for me. So yeah, for me it's kind of like a go big or go home type of thing. Like I want to do it well, want to represent the game well. And also, I think the episodes and the quality of them help to grow the game too, right? Mm-hmm. It gets more people interested. It creates more demand. So kind of all of those things wrapped up into one is sort of the motivation for, highly producing these episodes. And then, we have a lot of great helpers too that, aren't necessarily part of the core crew that plan, the event, but, they come out and they help. And so we have a lot of people able to help with camera, and, we've grown our camera supply, quite a bit. over the last couple of years. So little by little, it's just, adding people and adding equipment, and just trying to make it better and better. And this past year, I think, was a big opportunity with the theme too. You can go so many different ways, production and editing wise with this theme. So it's been a lot of fun.
I've been impressed in watching your most recent episodes that you have drone shots. I'm like, okay, there's been a lot of thought that's been put in this advance to have a drone set up with a camera to film this. And so I'm curious, when you're writing the season, because different hosts have had different takes, is the film product, the product that's going to come out on air, is that the most important, or is it the weekend gameplay experience, the players, that's paramount, with the edited version being kind of secondary to that?
Yeah. Stephen, that's funny you asked that, because we have that conversation all the time when we're planning, and we always say that our first priority is to the cast who's playing on the weekend. We want to make it the best possible event for the people who are paying and finding their way to, the backwoods of upstate New York to come play the game. And we think we can do both, really. But in terms of priority, we have that conversation all the time. It's like we're not going to sacrifice what's happening with the players on the weekend for a good edit. We'll get the edit that we can get, and we, to Brett's point earlier, we have more cameras, we have more helpers, we have more people, so that'll come, and we continue to refine that process, especially now that we have Brett and some of that thought process going into how the setup is happening over the weekend. But we want to make it as the best event possible for the people who are there.
I want to dig a little bit back into the history of the game. So when I've always been, you're going to laugh, it took me till yesterday to learn that Angelica is a place in New York. I had no idea. I was just like, who is Angelica? Why is this Survivor named after her? Did she found it? And so Survivor Angelica, right, is from Angelica, New York. You were at the Evergreen Trails campground. Talk to me about this location. Talk to me about the decision to, because I believe you have a new location that you're trying to use in this most current season.
Yeah. So Evergreen Trails was like the OG spot. That's for Brian and Kurt, and for all of us. I think we played our first game, and that's where there was different sites within the campground, but we built a great rapport with the owners, and that was where home was. And it wasn't always called Survivor Angelica. It was just kind of Survivor Weekend, Survivor Gaming Weekend. It was, it had a multitude of names. Sometimes it was just Survivor, and we would show up. There wasn't really this big production behind it all. We would print off some shirts and do some cool stuff, but it was very low key, very casual. And then as we start to form ourselves a little more, we really wanted to have an identity, and it just was like, well, Survivor Evergreen Trails, yeah, that's kind of cool, but it just kind of was like, well, where's the town we're in? Survivor Angelica. Okay, we're going to do that. And that just kind of stuck for a while. And here we are. And now, yes, we this year went to a new campground right up the road. It's maybe 15 minutes away from Evergreen Trails. And it, no hard feelings or anything. We wanted to expand and try something different. We wanted to involve water and swimming challenges. We needed the space. We were always tucked in behind the cabin in the woods. We're tripping over roots, and we're grooming the grounds before we even run a challenge to make sure that we can run a challenge where we want to. And it worked for as many years as we did it, but we finally got to a point now where our challenges are almost too big to operate the way we want to at Evergreen Trails on a large scale. We could still run smaller games and use their fields and things like that. So Letchworth Valley Campground, brand new this year. They just opened up in the spring. They took us on, and we helped them as much as they helped us. And they were, we went there a couple times to help them out, clean up and offer our hand at getting them opened up for the season, and just kind of bartered with them like, hey, can we use this area for a challenge? Oh yeah, sure, and sure, we'll cut a tree down and drag it across the woods for you, So, but it's been just a total roller coaster of fun the whole time, and we've had ups and downs, but each time we've just had a blast doing everything we do. We overcome new hurdles each time. We grow every season more and more together as a team, and as a family of Survivor Angelica. It's been just an amazing thing.
Valencia Burns is making me feel not crazy that I'm not the only person who thought Angelica was a person, not a place in New York. So thank you, Valencia, for supporting me here. Yeah, because I watched your 2018 interview with Fox Rochester's Ashley Duzerbacher. I can't get her last name right. Duzerbacher. And I was curious in that because then, like, it seemed to be calling it Survivor Weekend, but then I heard Survivor Angelica here and there. It seems like back in 2018 was a little bit mixed. Do you know, like, at what point you're like, we are Survivor Angelica. This is what we want to be known as?
I think it was shortly after that season. And that was kind of a rebirth of Survivor. That whole 13 Wham episode with the news was kind of our big push to start over. I met with Brian and Kurt, and we had a big meeting about where the game is going. Who are we keeping as crew? Who are we going to recruit as crew? Because we needed some people. We were starting to lose our followers and our interest because we had tapped all of our resources, like we've talked before, about friends, family, coworkers, people you play sports with. I mean, I met Brett playing hockey, and I was like, Brett, you got to try this, and then so we've all, we exhausted all efforts, and so we kind of took a little break. I think there was maybe a 1 year gap where we just didn't do anything. There might have been a murder mystery that we had provided. Brian and Kurt also put those on, and some of the other crew, Jason. And so there was a few things to fill the gap, and we did the news thing. I had some contacts in the broadcast area, and I said, hey, can we get on the news and just do something to get our name out there, and that we do this kind of thing? And sure enough, we had the applications start rolling in. We created a website. We did all these things to just start something different and, become more official. And then after that, we realized, okay, we really need a name. We really need to treat this at a more, on a different level than what we've been doing. And so that's where Chris really started to excel with his background and really help us out with the website and just, tracking our applicants and our, who we're interviewing and things like that. So, but yeah, right around that time frame was when that transition started to happen. And I think the next season, we really became Survivor Angelica as a whole.
Yeah, and just to quickly add on to that, I mean, right around that time frame is also when we started to be exposed to the community a little bit more as well, right? So we started to see these other games, and they were branded, and it was like, okay, well, how, it's not just a million different survivors, right? So, how are we going to be different from Reelfoot, from, Brooklyn South, from wherever? So, we just kind of honed in on the brand, just so there was some recognition with it.
Yeah, I was not stalking your Facebook page, but I saw the earliest posts were coming from 2018, so that all seems to make sense. I'm curious, with the existence of other games, do you feel like, I'm guessing user phrase iron sharpens iron, do you feel like learning about these games, seeing what they're doing, do you feel like that's improved your game or given different challenges? Like, hey, I see people are doing this. What if we did it our way? Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, we could probably each talk a little bit about that. What I'll say initially is we've always just been doing it for fun before we even knew these other games existed. So, I think this is like a creative outlet for most of our crew. As we found some of the other games, we'll watch and we'll say, oh, that's a great idea. And we share a lot of the networking aspects of things and support everybody who's doing it. I think, it's we have a win-win mentality when it comes to all of that kind of stuff, because, the sharing of information and just the reach that you get by doing that is going to benefit the whole community. So, we really don't look at it as like a competitive thing or, iron sharpens iron. It's just an opportunity for us to, learn from other things. Maybe they learn some things from us, but we try to keep our own identity and continue to, just try to do new things. We can try to recreate the CBS version or another game all day long, but that doesn't satisfy our creative urge to try to do something a little bit different. So, I think that's my position. I'm sure the other guys here have thoughts too.
Yeah, going off of that, trying to do our own thing and not just say not pay attention to the other people because we're in contact with them all the time, but we usually like to come up with ideas that we either haven't seen before, challenge-wise, that we haven't seen before, or something from one of our own previous challenges that we can improve upon, or slap it together with something else. But we're always trying to outdo ourselves rather than try to outdo everyone else.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's well said. We really do try to outdo ourselves and learn from our mistakes and maybe a challenge. We test them a million times before we do them, and then we run it in the game and it goes a completely different way we didn't expect, and it's like, all right, well, now we're going back to the drawing board with that one, and we'll try something new. And we all have a part in challenges. It's not like it's just everybody has a role of helping out with a challenge, whether it's the design phase of it or just the drawing of it. Like, here's what I want to do. Jason, can you build this for us? Like he was saying, he's told what to do and make it happen, and he does. And so we all kind of lean on him now a little bit more than we have in the past. It's just like he's really been our creative endeavor for just about everything we want as far as challenge wise. And timing is a lot of it too. And we all, I think, would love to help build challenges all day long, and we can't. So it also comes down to what works best for our game, what works best for creating a challenge. Can we do something in the next 6 months that's going to work for us and be able to test it and put it to the game and it's going to be successful, or do we hold off for another year and really fine tune it? We do watch the other games, like I think we mentioned before. We try to watch episodes or seasons or live games that are live streamed just to see what they're up to, what they're doing. It's nice to see how challenges might be run that, we all share some similar challenges that, we see from the show that we make our own interpretations on. And so maybe they found a way that works that we didn't, or maybe we see somebody saw a gray area in the rules. And so now we know that we can adapt our rules to that challenge. And, so those things too, we're always learning. It's a constant learning curve with what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think from a production side of things, it's hard to see everything everybody else is doing.
It's impossible.
And, for us, what was that?
It's impossible. I used to feel really good at keeping up with games, and at this point, I'm just like, there's just too many. I'm sorry. I can let alone even college Survivor games on top of that. I'm just like, no, I can't.
Yeah, from editing perspective, I've kind of gone about it just from what we're able to capture. There's kind of a flow to how we record the footage, and if you've seen a couple of our seasons, you kind of get the gist of how it works with the confessionals and a mix between that and some of the cutaway scenes with the tribes, and so that's kind of the format that's worked for us so far, and we're able to, I don't know, we're able to work with that. So I don't know that changing things up from that type of thing would be in our future, but always looking to improve. I think this season added a few new wrinkles in and tried to change things up as far as maybe straying away from the traditional Survivor roots a bit, and go, taking a few risks on that front. So trying to spice things up, but also not forgetting, what our foundation is, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Brett, I'll touch on that because you hit up a really good topic, and that's kind of our identity. Is we want to provide a game that's as much as Survivor, but it's also touching on other things. We provide a truly social game it has every aspect that you can want in Survivor, but it may not necessarily follow the same baseline as CBS Survivor does. We're not here to say we're trying to copy that game. We have many elements that are the same, but by no means are we trying to replicate it 100%, but it still gives you that same, element that Survivor does. And we love that about it. And people that play the game will say the same thing. So, you may see changes that we do in our game that are a different approach to things, and our themes might be different, and that the way we cast people you know, we may end up having people that know each other. We may not. We may get complete strangers. We might get, you know, it really depends on how we decide to roll with it. But we always try to balance it as delicately as possible to make sure that it's successful for all of us and for everybody that comes, that they have a great time. So I thought that was a great point there.
You mentioned earlier talking about the two founders of the original game. Are they still involved in Survivor Angelica? Are they doing other things now?
Yeah, Kurt and Brian are very much involved still, to whatever degree they want to be, really. You know, they've been on the crew, they've played. Both of them were camera last year. You know, again, their roots were really in videography. They actually did my wife and my wedding. So they, you know, they're big into that, and you know, they have a lot of great creative ideas, and they're really good on camera work, and then they still like to play from time to time. So, you know, a couple of years ago, if you watched, I can't remember if it was 2021 or
no, don't worry about that
2022. You know, you'll see them in it. So, you know, they are still very much involved, and you know, I think they have the freedom to be as much or as littly involved as they want, really.
They've earned it.
So I want to dig a little bit more into that 27-20 team. You kind of talked, I was thinking corporate terms, kind of a reorganization of what Survivor Angelica is or would be. You know, when you were kind of evaluating the game and where you'd like to take it, what was important to you? What were you looking to change or do differently?
Well, one of the things was we needed to stop cycling through the same people over and over again. I think, you know, that's one of the things that happened at that time is, you know, we were all getting older, and it's, you know, people were having families, and it's harder to get away for a weekend, and it's harder to commit to doing crew work for the better part of half a year for, you know, for fun, when, you know, when you're doing some of those other things. So when we got to that turning point, it was just kind of starting to, you know, tail off with what it was. And we needed to find, you know, we needed to broaden the reach, really, and figure out who was going to be really interested in carrying the game forward from a crew perspective. And once we locked in with the crew who was going to be committed, you know, over time, and then we found, you know, some of the other games in the online communities, it really just opened right up. And then as soon as we had that, you know, first season where applications were coming in from all over the Northeast, you know, the fire was lit at that point. We were all like, okay, game on. This is fun. Let's figure out what we could do. You know, just seeing people's reaction and how much we keep in touch with them and they keep in touch with each other after these games. You know, it's just, it keeps the fire burning, and we keep building on that. So, you know, I don't know that it was like a conversation where we were like, hey, you know, let's figure it out. It just kind of naturally happened, if that makes sense. And I know Cernus was a big part of it because, you know, as he mentioned, you know, there was like a year hiatus in there, and then he had some folks who wanted to play again. He was like, hey, do you mind? You know, can we kick this back up again and get it going? And, you know, I'd be more than happy to kind of host it. And that happened, and then, you know, and then we all just jumped right back into it, and like I said, it took off from there. In these last few seasons, you know, we keep trying to just beat ourselves again. It's been kind of, you know, what Crandall was mentioning.
Yeah, because I'm curious, because I feel like a lot of these games are very much run by the host. The games kind of live and die by the host. The host has a lot of work and tends to have a lot of control over things. And one of the biggest challenges, I think, for games is, you know, like, does the game end when the host no longer wants to do it, or is there continuity beyond the host, and having what that transition plan looks like? And it sounds like Survivor Angelica, y'all are over that hurdle, right? Because y'all, like none of you were there to start with, you all have been brought on, the team has changed. So kind of talk to me about, like, you know, the continuity of production over time, and how do you bring in new people, or have people step out and say, hey, I need to go live my life now?
Yeah, I think, you know, to that point, we've seen a lot of. I mean, Kurt and Brian used to do the majority of the hosting, and then when Jason Cernus brought it back, he was just a natural with it, and has continued to just get better and better since then. And I think at this point we've kind of locked into a pretty stable crew, and we're at a point now where we're having, we have a lot of offers for help. We have a lot of people that are like, hey, play everyone. We get a lot of people who play who say, hey, I will help. I'll come from New Jersey or Chicago or New York or wherever to help out. So we're taking advantage of those helping hands where we can, especially with the new campground being so large in terms of the layout and how we have to maneuver around there. We probably kill ourselves trying to do it with the same 8 people that are kind of on the core crew. I think we've kind of stabilized in that aspect, and now we have a lot of options for people who are willing to help and want to help, and we'll continue to, keep those doors open because we need that help.
Talk to me a little about so you mentioned core crew and then all the other volunteers. Just poor Jason.
Technology is not Jason's friend.
Yeah. So what is the size your core team? Has that been stable? For the past couple of years, what are the total volunteers you've had to come out and run a season?
So, I mean, just to give you last year, for example, so it's the people who are on this call, my wife, Elisa, Jason's wife, Val, and then Mike Sweeney, a camera guy. Mike is part of the core crew, and then Kurt and Brian to whatever extent they want to be involved, whether it's helping plan or picking up a camera on the weekend or even playing. So that's really the core crew. And then last season we had helpers. We had Tori and Alyssa and Amy and Taylor, all of whom had played in recent years.
Mark.
And he was so inspired by playing that they wanted to help. And of course it helps that they're local here. So, they could get down to the campground easily and get to meetings if we want to kind of clue them in as to what's actually, what the plan is, what the concept is, what the strategy calls for.
Brett, how many cameras do you have running during the game, and do you wish you had more footage to capture, or is what you have enough to edit through already?
Sometimes I wish we had more. When you were asking about just the level of production, sometimes, right, we get into some spots where it's like, oh, we missed something, or it could have been recorded better, or the audio is not the greatest, and so there's a little bit of workaround and trying to work around some of those misses, but there really isn't a lot, which is a testament to the people that help. It's pretty impressive, what people are able to do with really not a ton of experience. I mean, the helpers are just kind of handed a camera and told, what to do, and they manage to get great footage. So, so from a perspective of the number of cameras, we're probably this year we're around 8 cameras, but those they were split up this year a little bit more than in years past because the new location was so spread out. So short into this year, it was kind of determined that we would have cameras set up at different locations rather than running equipment back and forth. So yeah, I mean, the 8 cameras isn't necessarily 8 cameras for every scene or everything that's going on, but between where we were stashing them and where we needed to use them, there's probably about 8.
I want to dig a little bit into the game length. Is the current seasons are 2 days long, or are they 3 days long? I'm still a little unsure.
It's about 2.5, really.
Okay.
We start middle of the day Friday and end Sunday afternoon ish. give or take. We start on time for the most part. The the end timing is a little bit flexible depending on how things play out on Sunday. But that's generally what it is, Friday through Sunday.
And has that always been the case?
We started a little earlier this year on Friday, but it's pretty much always been that case. Yeah.
Yep.
So, did the decision to kind of having a 2.5, 3 day long game, was that more time constraints? Like, hey, it's the weekend, people are free, they can get off work, no issue. Has there ever been a desire to lengthen the game, shorten the game, etc.?
Of course. People ask us to do it constantly.
Yep. I mean, we just extended, we used to start at 7 p.m. on Friday, and now we're back to, 2:00. We could bump it a little earlier, but it buys us time to not have as much stress to run around like crazy setting things up. And, I think the new location has provided us an opportunity to stay set up on a challenge while we're running a tribal or getting confessionals. So that has helped. Whereas at the old location, we had to sequester people in their cabins and close the blinds so that we could run a challenge behind the cabin. And so you had to like set things up or cover it up, or you had to wait until after tribal and you walk people back so that they couldn't see the challenge. And so, the new location helped, and then spreading out our time a little bit more helped. So could we have more time? It would be great. But we also know that, everybody that chooses to come to these games, they're basically paying out of pocket to come here and have a great time. Yes, it's an all-inclusive weekend that they get to experience, but, some games can pull it off and do a week long. It's just, we just don't have the capacity, I don't think, to do, longer than maybe 3 or 4 days at best.
I think the struggle too is that as we continue to grow, the applicants are further and further away. So even if we could pull off 4 or 5 days, it's really hard to get 18 people with a free schedule for that long. Traveling in and being able to take that time off of work and things. So that's kind of another aspect of it.
Yeah, it's kind of there's a give and take here. On one hand, it's easy to get people to play, and especially because there's just less cost to play. On the other hand, it creates a bit more of a time pressure situation for production, saying, all right, we need to eliminate 10 people today. Let's do this. It's like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I will say, one thing that me as a player experienced and a lot of other players have mentioned is it does not seem like 2.5 days. Like it seems like
exhausting 2.5 days. I can tell you that much for both production and players, I bet.
Yeah. So, even if people are, thinking, 2.5 days, it's kind of short, or I don't know, just depending on which their experience is, it feels a lot longer. There's quite a bit that happens, and we've filled the time up quite a bit. So especially on Saturday, like we've had Saturdays that go from like 6 a.m. to like 1 a.m. So it can go pretty deep.
Yeah. But even still having the players starting a little bit earlier too. Now we're also starting early. We're used to be, get there Thursday and then, set stuff up, and then we're ready to go Friday. Now we're getting there Wednesday and then setting up till Friday, hammering things out still, or setup. There's a lot of setup this year, but it's just a lot more pre-setup time.
Yeah. Probably one of the most beneficial parts of both your previous game site and your current game site is the lodging accommodations for production. I think it's on one hand making your players starve. It's the Survivor experience, sleep in the dirt, whatever. But production, on the other hand, like having an actual place for you to stay, a bed perhaps, ability to have a shower, etc. That having those accommodations it makes a huge difference for the production crew, probably, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say, the cabins at both locations are definitely helpful to have, especially because we always seem to get rain. And, it's hard to deal with that in equipment and everything else. Again, we pull together what we can with our own money and resources, but, we're clearly not CBS out there with all the rain gear and everything else. So, we've always talked about it as, even the tribes, they're in cabins, but especially in the new location, they have premium cabins and they have rustic cabins, and the rustic cabins are essentially 4 walls and a floor. So there's nothing super elegant about putting the tribes in there, but our game has never been about surviving the elements. Our game is about the social strategy. It's about the challenges. It's about the connections that people are making, and that's where we've stayed in that lane, and we're happy there. If we extended the game, we could play around with it, and clearly, if you watch some of these things, you'll see that we'll weave some of that in, but it's not the backbone of Survivor Angelica. Get out here and survive the elements type of a thing.
What is the food situation like in the game? I know, given that players have sleeping bags, are sleeping inside. I mean, that makes a huge difference as a player, is being able to sleep, not on routes. But what is the food and other survival aspects of the game like?
Really, we're not giving them much. We provide drinking water, or if the cabin happens to have like a water spigot outside, they can refill, a water bottle they bring in. In years past, they might get like a row of like Ritz crackers and like a tiny little thing of peanut butter. But that's about it. We really don't give them much, unless it's given as a reward. Usually maybe something small just that they can share. Or if we do a food challenge, which it may not be the most glorious thing to eat, but there might be something there that is worthwhile and that sort of thing. But we try not to provide it just to add that extra element. Like Chris said, we weave in parts of, Survivor to make it as realistic as possible. And as Brett mentioned, within, the first 4 challenges in, people are thinking they've already been here for 3 or 4 days. So, it definitely takes its toll on people. And you have people that are eating it in their cars like the last minute before we're like, all right, it's time to go. And so by 9 o'clock Friday night, they're like, I'm starving. I can't do this. I'm dying. I need food. And it's just, it happens pretty quick, but we really try not to give the food unless there's an emergency type scenario, which we ask, ahead of time. If anybody has, the need for medications and things, let us know. People that may have diabetic issues where they need sugar or things like that, we allow all of it. We're not going to strip them of those sort of things. Obviously we don't want any emergencies, but we do our best though.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we have a good spread at the merge feast. So if you want to eat, there's rewards, and make the merge. If you don't make the merge, my wife Elisa runs a pretty sweet Ponderosa as well. So that is well stocked with food and beverages.
It's getting voted out, not so bad.
Yeah.
Right.
That is a well-oiled machine. The Ponderosa is our most flawless thing that ever happens every single time. Elisa runs the best Ponderosa I have ever seen. It is just unbelievable what she does. And year after year, people compliment her on what a great job she does. And so, hats off to her for that. We really appreciate it.
What's her secret?
Hustles. She just hustles. She is.
Yep.
She does not stop for the whole weekend.
She's hustling and she's organized.
Yeah, I was just gonna say organized and a caretaker too. So she's got it down to a science, and the spread is pretty good, and she's really good at organizing who's going to be contributing what to the spread, and then filling in the gaps. So she's super organized with that.
Because I know, like, the post-game experience is probably as important as the in-game experience, because you have a cast of 16 to 20. There's going to be one winner. And in a game, at the speed of your game, by the end of the first day and a half, you're going to have half the players out of the game. What are they going to do? And ensuring that, like, they're not going to, like, walk out saying, wow, I lost, I'm hungry, I'm miserable, everything's awful. That's really important to be able to accomplish.
Yeah, so having played before that, most of us have played before, but me, probably the most recent, It was an awesome experience at Ponderosa for a couple of reasons. The food, of course, but you kind of get taken out of the game and you're still not out of the game mode, right? So you're wanting to talk about it, and especially because you just got voted out. So you're kind of, going through your mind, racking your mind of what just happened. So, cool experiences. You get to go, hang out with other people who are in the game. We don't allow them to talk game, especially if they're part of the jury. But things that don't really have to do with the game, so to speak, you can talk about. And so just having that commonality of people to hang out with after the game, and we've had that question quite a bit, is like, once I get voted out, do I just go home? And no, it's it's I wouldn't say it's a party, like they're not like hooting and hollering, but it's a good hang. So it's good vibes.
One of my experience when playing live games is that things tend to be kind of kumbaya on your original try before you lose a challenge, right? And given a game that's going to 2-3 days long, every minute's really valuable. Is there anything you've done or seen successful in the past to help kind of encourage players to kind of jump the gun and begin playing per se, versus like sitting back, resting their laurels until the first challenge is lost, which for some tribes may not be for a while?
I mean, we've done a few different things. We haven't done it recently, but there's been some skits involved in the past, and there's been a lot of different exercises with decorating something or building something, especially early on, and that can continue through the first day and a half, especially if there's a tribe who's winning everything. But we don't try to force a winning tribe into, hey, you got to start really playing the game here until the time comes, because that can be a really rude awakening for that type of tribe if if they're just hanging out the whole time. So we try to do things to mix it up and create interactions with people. More than anything else, and even like the crafting and things like that. Whenever we're having them decorate, a tribe flag or a voodoo doll, or we've done other similar things in the past, and that's when people might start to pull a couple things out of the crafting kit and start to manufacture a fake idol, or whatever the case may be. But we don't try to force anything. I think once we get into the game, I think you'll find that at least one of our mottos is we try not to interfere as much as possible, have as little impact on the game as we can, and that goes into everything from how the challenges are executed to the rules that we set forth. Like the least amount of interaction or kind of moving in there that we could do, the better.
I want to dig a little into the casting, because you mentioned, originally this is a game that was kind of friends and family, et cetera, and then 2018. I'm getting some feedback from someone's microphone.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm not quite sure whose it is.
Probably
starting in
me.
2018.
Hold on.
It was you.
Yeah, I don't know who it is, unfortunately, but starting 2018, you really started expanding and really casting fresh blood in a sense from outside the game. How has casting evolved over these past 5 years?
Well, casting has evolved substantially. So it went from knowing people and the Friends and Family Network to collecting applications online and kind of sifting through them and making some phone calls to, hey, if you really want to be on, send us a video application with your application. So, we've gotten to a point where, now we collect a lot of video applications. We have a ton of applications that come through the website, and, we filter through all of those. At this point, with the amount that we have, it's going to be hard to get on without a video application, because that helps us kind of narrow it down a little bit. And then we have kind of casting parties, meetings with the crew. We actually have one Friday night. We're going to go through a whole bunch of applications, video applications. We have like a star system that we use individually, and then see how they compare notes. And then we'll follow up and ask people to join us on Zoom calls or whatever the platform is, and we'll do group interviews like this, and then we'll kind of vote it out from there as a group.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, circling back to your last question about potentially having to like get people to start moving in the game early on. A lot of that gets weeded out in the casting process, just in terms of like what type of player you are, and like getting a feel for like if someone's going to be like super timid, and not necessarily timid as far as like somebody who sits back gameplay wise, but somebody who's maybe just scared overall to play, or just not like that we would maybe be worried that they wouldn't play to the fullest extent. So a lot of that stuff does get sorted out in the casting calls and in the interviews that we do.
There are a lot of other games in the Northeast. Northeast is really like a great place for Survivor live reality games. And you even have two other games nearby, both Survivor New York and Survivor Brooklyn South. Given the rise of people playing other games, and how has that changed kind of the casting process itself now that you have players who are brand new than players who have experience coming to the table?
That's been a pretty difficult one. You guys got me.
Yeah, we got you.
That's been a difficult one because, we obviously don't want to have too many connections unless we decide to plan for something like that. But, the community now in the Northeast is who we see the most of when it comes to applications. Even most recently right now, our casting period is open, and, I'm seeing a lot of familiar names and even some repeat names from other seasons that we didn't cast, that, there's an opportunity. I always say that, like, the community is small enough to where in our game, we're going to cast you at some point. It's just a matter of timing. And it'll be sooner than later for most. So, we run through them pretty quick, but it's crazy the amount of names that pop up that we see that are the same. There are a lot of new faces starting to emerge. And I think that's due, for us at least, that's due to, being into this community now as kind of the newbie to the community. So that's nice to have kind of an untapped resource. At the same time, though, you get like, a lot of common names out there that have played, dozens of games, and they're like, we want to play your game again. It's like, okay, hold on.
Yeah, we don't shy away from it. I mean, we obviously see it. I know there's some other games who will kind of shy away from it or try to not put people in that have played with each other before, who have crossed paths. And we want to do that too, where we can, but we're certainly not scared of it. I think that if we get a great cast of personalities who want to come play hard and play to win, we're going to throw twists and turns at them that they're not going to be able to sit with, with a couple people they know and navigate through the game in that way. I mean, we've made it a point to create, a little bit of chaos, purposeful chaos, let's call it, within the game to make sure that, there's not too much of an advantage there.
And even so, like, our big worry is people know each other in the game, going to form alliances based on that and sort of like run the game. But it's at least this past year, it was sort of the opposite, where if you knew a lot of people, like you were on the chopping block. So it actually wasn't a good thing to have at least too many connections this past season. So that was a little different than what we had anticipated.
Your most recent season that's airing right now is Blessings versus Curses, which is very much inspired by Voodoo, which has been very fun to watch to see how you've themed it throughout the game so far, at least through the first 3 episodes. talk about the decision to have a theme, because it sounded like from at least the chat we did before the episode, this podcast began, you haven't had an overt theme like this before.
Yeah, I think, where it started was with the new campground. So moving to the new campground was a fresh start, and it allowed us to, explore a few different things. I think the theme came out of the visits that we had early on to the campground. So, one of the things that was really interesting to us when we went there is the story behind the campground was that it was like an abandoned, religious camp. And there was pieces of that all over the campground. Everything that you can imagine from an abandoned religious camp. Everything from the the full amphitheater that we run tribal at to where we had purgatory out on this peninsula. Just stuff all over the place that was literally just left at the campground. So when we came away from those initial visits to the campground, we just started. We had our initial brainstorming sessions, and I think we left there with kind of a feeling, and we're like, man, there's got to be something that we can lean into based on all the stuff that we saw and experienced when we were there. And I think Elisa and Vale actually came up with the idea of, what if we had some kind of voodoo theme, and then the way the crew works together is just like, and this, so then that started happening, and then we had to figure out how the heck to stitch it all together. So that's where the idea was born from, and we leaned into that voodoo theme, and that's where the ideas started coming. It was like, okay, we can have them decorate voodoo dolls at the beginning, and then, oh my God, we could do something with tarot cards, and we try to always think of new and creative ways to introduce advantages or disadvantages and things like that into the game. And we're like, wow, we could use the tarot cards for that, and create a structure that would just systematically put things into the game. And then we layered this whole idea of social currency over the top of it. So it was just something that came together after we visited the campground, and then we were like, man, that could be really good for storytelling too. And Brett, started to really get into, well, how we might be able to tell the story on the back end when it came time for episodes and things like that, which, we love to cut. I know a lot of the other, a lot of the other games may do live streaming and stuff like that, which is really cool. But we love to do episodes. Like, we love to cut it down to the most relevant stuff and tell the story, and then give people something to take away and show their families. And it's a little bit, easier to consume in that way. So we thought, wow, if we did it this way, that could really, that could have a production uplift too on the back end. But more than anything else, we thought, man, people are going to come to this new campground and be like, oh my God. And then we're going to introduce these game elements, and they're not going to know what the heck is going on. There's going to be a lot of information coming at them at once. And we thought it was going to be a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah. Going all in really was our big thing. Just making sure that, we really made this a big opportunity at the new location. And just, consuming all of what it had to offer and what we could make of it with the potential that we had there. Was like, we need to really go big and strategize and think of, ways that we really haven't approached things before. And just, we know we can make it happen. We've got a great team that, we know we have a good core that can create something great. So it was like, let's go all in. Let's do this. Let's create an identity for ourselves here. Let's, if we're going to theme it, let's theme it. And that'll help us really create the game from there. So that was the footprint that really set the tone for the whole season.
Do you expect to be theming future seasons? Is this more of a one-off, or just we'll see when we get to the production planning meeting in a couple months?
I think we all had a lot of fun with going hard for a theme. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I would say if it works and we can theme it, we will continue to do that because it really does provide a, kind of a structure to build around. But, we won't force feed that if it's not coming together,
Wait, you mean we're not going to have Survivor Angelica like heroes versus healers versus hustlers coming up in the near future? Are you going to deprive us of that?
That's not one that we've talked about.
Brett, with the episodes, I really enjoyed with the first episode. There's a level of playfulness to it. I love the incorporation of kind of the static of the opening scenes and its confessionals, leaning in kind of that ghost story horror element. Talk to me about your philosophy of editing.
Yeah, I think what it boils down to and what I wanted to get across was atmosphere. We had the awesome campground. Even coming from Evergreen, that's still a great atmosphere. It's in the middle of nowhere. You're in the woods, but now with this, with Letchworth Valley and also having our theme and sort of it all coming together. Yeah, just wanted to convey atmosphere. So, tried to just turn the dial up a bit on production and getting across this, creepy vibe or, the supernatural vibe. Because I think even, for as strong as the voodoo theme and elements are, there is a bit of a supernatural to it as well. So yeah, I think it is just trying to complement that and trying to make it so that didn't just hit you in the face the first time when somebody visited the fortune teller cabin, right? So, trying to kind of build up, a bit of suspense or just a bit of feel, getting there.
Are any of you the fortune teller by any chance, or is that some other production member?
That's great.
Nice. It's gotta be a fun role to play.
You can tell by his hands.
Yep. Jason, we've talked about how this new site provides not only the access to water, but larger space. What were you most excited with seeing this from a challenge perspective? And were there challenges that you have in mind that didn't get you don't need to spoil what's going to happen in the future, but are there things you want to do that you didn't have a chance to do this past season with the space?
Who? Oh, me?
Yeah. Thank you.
Challenge, Jason. Yes.
I mean, the biggest thing going into this place is making things bigger. I think we'd all agree with wanting to really spread our wings because with Evergreen Trails, it was a great place and we knew what we could do there, but a lot of it was limited by the space that we had. Now we have this wide open field, a couple of them. I mean, we've got the water area, a slide. I mean, there's just so many opportunities to bring all of the elements into new challenges. I can't think of anything in particular right now that we've talked about or that I want to bring up to put into it, but we're getting into that phase now where we're all, starting to think about things that we may want to have come into the game.
Yeah, I think now seeing, what we can do there and just kind of visualizing better the space that we have and how to just the logistics behind where we can keep certain challenge materials and how we're going to set it up and how much time we have. Now that we've been there and done that, it's like, okay, we can take some of the things that we've done and expand on them. The field provides a huge space that if we can't build something bigger, we can extend the challenge by a few phases or elements to really create a larger overall challenge concept. So that was one of the things that we tried to really utilize with the field and just get a feel for it. We also had to be mindful that this is our first time there. So we didn't want to go too crazy with some of the challenge setup because we weren't sure how it would go. And so even after visiting the campground several times and just kind of getting an idea of things. So now that we really know, we can really fine tune some of those things. And I'm sure, I know all of us have lists of things we'd like to see happen. So
we didn't want to go too big on the season being they're brand new, but we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we did anyways. I think, these guys hit on a couple of the things. I think what's cool about this is we could string like what previously would have been one challenge at Evergreen. We could string like 2 or 3 or even 4 of those things together with a much larger footprint and just make the challenge with multiple components and elements. Whereas that really wouldn't have been an option, before. We were very tight on kind of where the space was and how big we could set up. So even just simple things like if we want to do, things with slingshots or even, dodgeball or anything like that, like before it was very cramped in, and now we can really just scale it way up and have a lot more access to that. And then, the other thing with the layout of this one is it's much easier to get that drone up there and have line of sight down over the challenges as well. And then the water. I think, we all agree that we're going to want to continue to do more with the lake at Letchworth Valley. It's got a lot of character and different elements to it that we can continue to expose more of.
Yeah, I know being there, seeing the drone footage happening and everything, but now watching again on these episodes, man, I still get excited.
It's really cool to see it. And we only had limited opportunity. I think Brett didn't, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought maybe we lost the drone at Evergreen Trails at one point, or it may have took a dive.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's been a bit of a pain. less of a pain at the new place, mostly due to just aerial space. Evergreen is kind of like the trees are kind of like is a bit of a canopy, if you will. So this new site's more wide open. So yeah, there's definitely more opportunity. Like we're talking challenge, but there's more opportunity for production too, right? So we got the drone, we get some different shots that we can pull off, some different cameras that we can use for wide angle shots and all that stuff. So yeah, it really just opened up a lot for us. It was pretty big.
One other thing I'll hit on too real quick, Stephen, was that Evergreen is a great spot. We can't say enough good things about them. It was just the logistics of like where the cabins were to where we could potentially run big challenges. They had a field area, but if you ever watch our early seasons, our first challenge was always up at the top at the big field, we call it, and that's like right where the main parking area is for all the cast members. And we would do like one big challenge there, and then it's like a 20-minute walk down to where the cabins are. So, for us in timing, if we were to run a challenge up there, even 3 or 4 of them throughout the weekend to gather everybody up, separate the tribes so they don't walk together, it just wasn't going to work, and there's some cabins near the big field there, but they're just not big enough for what we need. So that was really the big thing, is they have some of the components we need. It's just the timing of it. We'd have to run a 4-day game there just to make the walk back and forth work. So Letchworth, our field is 2 minutes away. It's just a little down the hill and we're there. And same thing with the swimming area. It's down 2 minutes the other way. So it saved a lot on the production point, from challenge building and set up to getting the tribes there and back. And for crew, I felt like at Evergreen, we were constantly all over the place, just all the time. And here it's just like, yeah, there's some hills and we're up and down, but it wasn't so bad. It really worked out well.
I love a lot of the set pieces I've seen this current season, but the thing that has me biggest up in arms are the tarot cards. The tarot cards with advantages. Can you talk about how you came up with those, where they're made and everything? Because those have just been fantastic so far.
So I think, those tarot cards are actually based off of real tarot cards. So we took the names of actual tarot cards, and then we sort of had a meeting and figured out, what we wanted the advantages and disadvantages to be, the blessings and curses. So I think it was maybe Chris and Val came up with, what corresponding advantage, disadvantage was going to go to what tarot card.
Okay, because I'd ask, were you corresponding the advantages to the actual arcana themselves, or were those the inspiration?
We got books from the library of tarot card meanings and stuff like that. And we're like, this one kind of fits with this blessing, or this one fits with this curse. So
Yeah.
Try
The
to
tribe
do as
names
much.
too, I think have
Yeah. I mean,
They are like I don't know, old voodoo.
Aloha is a spirit in Hindu
Yeah.
voodoo, and it's any kind of spirit, and Abaka is essentially an evil Loa.
Evil spirit, that's what it was. Yeah.
And so like it's woven in everywhere, and we literally did, to these guys' point, like look at the meanings of the tarot cards and then look at the advantages and disadvantages and try to figure out which ones would blend best with the devil, or whatever the whatever the tarot card was. So and then Brett did his thing. I mean, Brett, do you want to talk to design and getting them introduced?
Yeah, so again, kind of just going for that atmosphere, the branding, if you will, of the theme, and trying to keep that consistent. You'll see a lot of the same colors and background elements and things like in our episodes. More so probably in the thumbnails for the YouTube videos, but yeah, just having the graphic design background, put those together, found some images of the actual tarot cards and kind of superimposed them and did some graphic design around them. And then found this really cool website that prints board game material. So they actually had a tarot card offering that you could upload your design and they would print you off tarot cards, and wasn't too expensive, and they were really great quality. So we did like a trial pack, and they came out great, and so we went ahead with it, and the rest was history. I mean, I think, what did we end up having, Chris? Maybe close to 30 cards, something like that.
Yeah, we had 20 blessings and 20 curses in total.
It's always rig the draw blessing, right?
Right.
So far.
Right. Yeah, it seems like that's how we started. I won't spoil anything in the future, but everything has a way of regressing to the mean.
Your game has a long history, and you probably had done a lot of advantages, twists, challenges. Is there anything that you've loved from the past you'd love to see come back in the future? And again, if you're like, we don't want to give away our secrets, feel free to pass on this question. But I'm curious, based off your experience with Survivor Angelica, is there something you want to see return someday?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know. We always like some version of a puzzle runner with a different twist all of the time. So there's the first challenge that we had this year is one that Vale is unbelievably good with coming up with different ways to do a puzzle runner challenge.
Is that the instant insanity challenge?
And I don't know what that is.
It's the 4-color blocks you have to all have.
No. That was the second challenge. So the first one was they had to run down and look at an image that actually had the tarot.
I love that. The boxes were all themed as well, right? So
so those were actually the tarot cards.
Yeah.
And we wanted that first challenge to start to introduce the tarot card imagery to the cast. So they had to run down and try to memorize how they were, and then recreate that image with the blocks, and then knock the blocks down, and then get a key, and then solve a word puzzle. So there's a lot that we can do with Puzzle Runner because we can always include multiple elements into that challenge. So that's one that I think is one that I always like.
By the way, I love the name or the terminology for that style of challenge, like a puzzle runner. It's like we're going to be run and do a bunch of stuff and a puzzle at the very end.
Right.
The naming convention.
Yeah, that's the most straightforward one we have. Everything else is, whatever pops in our head first.
Yeah. What about you guys? What challenges do you like?
I don't know that I have any in particular. I like, I think this kind of goes back to having a bigger space now. I always like the physical challenges. Not to say that couldn't have a puzzle at the end of it or something like that, but I'm always in awe of what CBS Survivor can do as far as some of their big sets and people running all over the place and over obstacles and all that stuff. So I'm excited to see what we can do in the future as far as physical challenges go.
I'll kind of take a route of, advantages and idols and things like that. We really created some awesome ideas with the blessings and curses, hexes and heals. So that, here I go, all over the place. I'm balancing my phone because anyways. So I really like the ideas that we've come up with, and I think we can reinterpret them in different ways moving forward in different seasons. And another thing that I really liked that I think that we can tweak on was the Phoenix Idol from last season. Just something cool about that I think that we have something there that we can involve in some way or another in another season moving forward. If it happens, if it ties into a theme. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a great concept from start to finish. We always try to add these little extra elements that kind of make our game, what it is and help to interject those twists, but also let them come into the game. So that would be my thing is more creativity and continuing the creativity on our twists and advantages and things like that.
Yeah, I really love the whole idea with the Phoenix Idol, and a lot of the things we come up with is like, okay, here's what we want to happen, and then we work backwards from there. Well, they got to do this, and then if they get that part, so on the production end, it's like a puzzle for us trying to piece together how we get the players to this point, and that's always a lot of fun. But like Cerna said, it's Phoenix was really cool to see play out, and challenge wise, holding the boards, the ropes, and stacking the letters. We got a different name for it, but
I know what you're talking about.
That one's always fun to use. There's different ways we can change that up with more space. There's just so many opportunities with the new place.
Your Survivor Angelica website notes that you all do murder mysteries, detective weekends, and other rally game inspired events hosted by your crew each year. Can you talk a little about, are you all involved in that altogether, or is that only part of the crews involved in that? Like, how often do you host these other kinds of games or events?
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say we like to put on in the off season of Survivor, which now the off season really doesn't last long anymore. But we like to put together different events, and that's where Kurt and Brian Klein really come in. Now they really like to take over that aspect, but we kind of split the crew. Half puts together the game, and the other half plays it along with everybody else. And
yeah, I was going to say that it gives us an opportunity to have fun. Like for me, being the host, it's like I want to do something, So usually they would follow up with some sort of fun murder mystery or some sort of game weekend where maybe it's just one day, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of let loose and just enjoy somebody else providing something for us instead of us doing all the work. So those of us that have some time assist, Kurt and Brian. Other ones we just participate and have a good time in it. So.
We've also thought about making them sort of reunions for previous Survivor seasons. So, having the same core people out from, previous season to do a murder mystery or something like that. We haven't done it yet, but could be potential for the future.
I mean, given I feel there's always discussion like, what if we all played the same season all over again? Who would win? I think that'd be fantastic to kind of bring the cast back to play out a different kind of experience.
Hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Those are a lot of fun. The murder we've done, straight up murder mystery, like dinner concepts, but also like full on detective weekends where we've actually shot a lot of video clues. Again, with Kurt and Brian liking to shoot videos, like we've actually, kind of done some side acting, so to speak, just to get silly video clues into a game of Clue. Brian's put on a spin of the mole called the Weasel. So we have a lot of that stuff. And to these guys' point, I mean, sometimes half of us will work on that, have us a play. And then, maybe a few others will do that the next year. So it's usually those games are far less intense. It's a little bit more free form, a little bit more relaxed. Food, drink is all just there. It's more of a laid back, experience for some of those.
We've talked about how the 2017-2018 was a real like formative year and like reached about remolding what Survivor Angelica was and the direction it was going. From where you are today, like where would you like to see Survivor Angelica continue to go, or is there an overarching vision you have in mind of the series?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one we talk about quite a bit, and I don't know that we ever land that plane. Where we always land is we're still doing this for fun and for creative outlets. We don't have a vision to turn this into anything much bigger than it is right now. I think the more that we can continue to experiment, the more that we can continue to put our creative twists on some of the things that you may know and see already out there, I think is really cool. And if opportunities present themselves, we may look into those things. We've had, companies come to us and say, hey, can we modify this into a team building event? Or can we, can you just come and do like a challenges thing? And, up until this point, we really, it was like, well, that's not really our thing. But we're always open to those types of conversations. So at least right now, I think, we're going to continue to push the envelope in terms of what we can do with, having fun for ourselves and watching, people really enjoy their time when they're there. We want to keep pushing, production and viewership and things like that, because it may open other doors, but it's not the end goal right now for us.
Yeah, I've been in talks with CBS to never talk to them again about Survivor 2. So,
yeah, I think the game itself might dictate where we go with it. Meaning, I think one of our big goals is driving demand. Getting a bit of higher quality episodes out there that are watchable, that are enjoyable. Hopefully that drives demand for future contestants. They help you, and so it just kind of snowballs. And so like Chris said, potentially that opens doors that we don't know of at that point. But for right now, I think it's just growing the game and continuing to do a solid job with it.
Yeah, we provide a great experience for anybody that plays our game. And I think that's one thing that we really drive home is we really try to provide the best overall experience for them. It's a weekend long thing. They're giving up time from work, their families, their friends, to be here and be part of this. So we want to create something special for them too, that they can really say that they came and enjoyed. So just keeping to, continue building on that. And then, the viewership expanding on that. You look at these Survivor fan groups and CBS groups that, follow Survivor, and you see in the comments all the time, I've applied 15 times, I can't get on, and I wish there was a way to experience this game. And it's like, they don't know we exist. There's still people out there that watch the show that are in these communities that have no idea that they can go and play a week-long game, a 3-day-long game, a one-day game, and just get their feet wet a little bit and try it out. So I'd love to see, more applicants come in that, are really skeptical about trying something like this. They say they've applied for, CBS. Well, apply for ours. Just give it a shot, see what happens. It's once you get the taste of it, next thing you know, you're playing 15 other games across the country.
It'll look great on a resume.
Well, that's the thing too. We could be the minor leagues, right? Like if somebody's actually looking to get a taste for it and potentially use our episodes as some of their entry footage, then more power to them. So,
is there anything else about Survivor Angelica y'all want to talk about or mention that we haven't had a chance to dig into yet?
I think we've hit it all.
Yeah, I think you drew a lot of it out of us, Stephen.
Well, in that case, I have some last questions I'd like to ask you all. And given there's 4 of you, let's, I guess, take as much time we need, but you don't need to go super elaborate. But what's one piece of advice you'd want to give someone who's going to run their first game? We'll start with Jason Crendell.
No, next. I'm very new to the, well, not very new to the
For you, like
production
if
side
someone
of it,
says,
but
"I want to run a game," what challenge advice would you give them?
have people that you don't want to kill around you. People that you really enjoy spending a lot of time with.
Chris?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's a good one. I would say, you know, pull together a group of people that you can trust and make sure, you know, everybody's kind of clear on what their role is going to be in the overall game production. And then, you know, go out there and watch some of these different, you know, live games and other games. I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time here. Some, you know, if you're just going to pick up and start something new, there's probably a framework that you can borrow by watching some of these things. So I would say, you know, get a good group of people together that you could trust, that you know are going to be engaged. That you know are willing to maybe put in a little bit of their own money along the way, because this stuff isn't free either. You know, and try to take what you can from what's out there already. I mean, that if a fresh start is what we're talking about, that's what I would do.
We're talking about somebody who would want to start their own game. Yeah. I would just say make sure you're dedicated. If you're going to do something bigger, you're right. Like, not to pat ourselves on the back, but there's a lot of planning that goes into it. You know, we meet multiple times a month for, I don't know, this past year it was November straight through, you know, to the game, which was in June. So, you know, constantly meeting, and those are just the meetings, right? Like these guys are making the challenges, like we're cutting the tarot cards, designing stuff, you know, so there's a lot that goes into it. So, you know, if somebody's looking to do something and do it well, I would just say make sure that you've got the dedication for it. And to Jason Crandall's point, make sure the people around you are dedicated as well.
Yep. You want to have fun with it. That's the biggest thing. You don't want to overthink it. You know, keeping it simple. Just getting a concept, developing it, and putting it out there for the world. Just, you know, something that works for you. Don't try to imitate. Don't try to, you know, just be authentic. You know, find what works for you. You don't have to pretend to be Jeff Probst. You don't have to pretend to, you know, have this huge production and try to say all the same things and act a certain way. Just be you, be yourself. Let the challenges do their thing. You don't have to overthink them. Just create simple rules that are easy to understand. Having a group of friends, you know, with you. I mean, we do this, and you know, it takes up a lot of our time, but we enjoy each other's company. We are friends. We have a great time with this, and I think that's what makes it succeed. Is that, you know, we trust each other. We can trust that we can tell somebody an idea and they're not going to judge us for it. We just, all right, well, that might not work. Okay, cool. I like the input. So having that network of people that you really can trust and spin ideas off of, and they have the dedication to want to help you out, and they have deep pockets. You know, you can charge players whatever you want, but you're still going to end up in the red some way or another, unless you've got some donors or people that are like, yeah, I'll give you, you know, whatever you need, which I think I would love to see that moving forward. I think, to kind of step back to one of the other questions, I would love to see a point where we get some sort of sponsors or people that say, hey, you know, we'd love to provide your food for the weekend, or we'd love to, you know, provide a challenge sponsored by us, and, you know, we'll buy whatever materials you guys need. Or maybe they involve, like, you know, whatever business aspect they have into that sort of challenge that gets weaved in, just to help us out a little too. But that's whatever. If it happens, it happens. It doesn't, we have a great thing, and we know roughly what it takes to make it happen. So to anybody wanting to do it, just do it. Take the chance. Have fun with it. Start off with your friends. That's how these things work, is just experiment with your friends and maybe some coworkers and run a little event and see how it goes. And or a birthday party, for crying out loud. And if it works out, take it to the next level.
All of you have experience both as players of Survivor Angelica, but as well as production members of Survivor Angelica for a lot of years between the group of you. What's a favorite memory?
I love the draft party. It's always a good time. The night before the game starts, we pick our teams.
Yeah, that is a ton of fun. Yeah, you
It's
know,
like the last unwind before the game starts, and we're picking teams, and it gets fun.
yeah, that's a good one. I think the draft is definitely something that stands out. I think it's hard to pinpoint one thing. What I'll say in general is the thing that stands out to me is just the relationships that we've kind of cultivated coming out of it. We've just met so many people. I didn't play hockey with Brett, but now I'm really, really good friends with Brett. It's, and that's because he played Survivor, and now he loved it so much that he wanted to be a part of creating it for other people. So, for me, it's always I'm fascinated by what happens on the weekend. It's like, it's literally live reality TV in front of you. And then, just the connections that we've made over time. I think that's the thing that stands out most for me.
Yeah, I'll give two. As a player, I'll get particular. It's got to be the cleats. That's I still, if you haven't seen the season I was in last, I still don't live that down. And then on production, it is that storytelling aspect. It is creating. From both sides of it, actually, we did a lot of planning this past year to try to create, I wouldn't say necessarily drama, but if drama happened, great. But really just things happening in the game. We wanted players to be forced to have to potentially scramble or make strategic moves. And so on the front end of that, it's really exciting to plan and to try and envision what the story is going to be. But then on the back end, creating the episodes, you've got your story, or at least the foundation of it, sort of there, and then you find little nuggets or little rabbit holes, that you can go down, or some. There's some opportunities, for a funny edit here, or to cut somebody off in the middle of them talking, or just add different effects in there to kind of either lighten it or again just really tell a story, whether it's the story of the game itself or like a little side story. I think probably one of my favorites was a couple seasons ago when Kurt played, and he had that little funny
Survivor.
Yeah, where if you've seen this season, he basically is just trolling people, and the camera kind of follows him around as he trolls all these different conversations. So, adding some funny music behind that, and kind of drumming up, some of the comedic aspects of it. So yeah, that's probably it for me.
Yeah, for me, production wise, my favorite moments, and it's not just one, it's introductions at the beginning. When everybody arrives, everybody's nervous. Everybody has no idea what to expect other than what they've seen on episodes, which they know no two seasons are really the same. We always bring something different to the table. So you get everybody there, everybody's nervous, but everybody's excited to be there. And then we start to go through the introductions and the rules, and just watching them start to settle in, realizing that they're all in the same boat, and the game's about to begin. So for me, seeing their faces, their smiles, their excitement, that's a really awesome feeling. And just knowing that we're about to do this, everything we put 9 months worth of work into, or 6 months, 7 months, however long it happens to be, is just coming to fruition. And they're leading up to it. Some of these people were cast early on, and they're waiting months to be here, and they show up and just see them and finally make those connections, and face-to-face handshakes, introductions, and things is awesome. And then on the second part of that production part is the first tribal council for each tribe when they finally make it there. Whether it's a tribe that's just dominated and then they finally lose and they have to show up, watching their initial reactions to when they see tribal, or the very first tribe that comes to tribal for their first tribal council, seeing that and just being the first ones there for the season, like, wow, their faces light up, and it's just like, oh man, we're here. The game has really begun. the first challenge and whatever we do is usually fun, and people really it doesn't sink in yet until it's tribal council time. So that's fun and interesting. And then my favorite memory for me was obviously as a player, winning. And the season that I won, it was a very big moment for me in my personal life. And I always say this to everybody. It was just a rough patch in my life. I was going through some things. And I here I am with a bunch of strangers, a few people I had knew through friends of friends, but I came into the game not really knowing much at all and just had the time of my life. I mean, it's one of the top 10 memories of my life ever. And here I am today, still with everybody that's been involved. I'm still friends with them. We talk, the people that I played with, I talked to, and now, I'm on crew with some of the very same people. So it's an awesome experience for me overall. And that's why I'm still here, was because of the experiences that I had. So.
And I guess my very last question, what would you like to see more from the live reality game community, or would you like to see something begin in the live reality game community?
I think I'd like to see some more collaboration between live reality games, different groups coming together to either create one season and just a huge casting effort, or maybe it's like, Survivor Angelica brings on their All-Stars versus, say, Survivor Brooklyn South All-Stars, or Survivor Reelfoot.
Surviving Bloomington, that host would be very key for that. That's one of the things he wanted to do. So talk to Casey Winecki. He would be interested.
Okay.
Awesome.
I don't know if anybody has anything else. That's just my
that
thoughts.
that sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer, and I'm not going to try to follow you.
It's all on you, Brett.
No. I don't know that I have anything specific. I just like to see the community grow, right? Like, if our game can be an inspiration, great. And I know that others have been for us. So, what we do is pretty unique. There's not a lot of people putting these games on, across the country. So, being in that small niche of people, comparing notes, sticking together, and maybe forming some ideas off of each other, all for the best.
I have one last one.
Please share.
Have a winner get on the CBS show?
There you go, buddy.
Hey, there we go.
I knew it.
Yep. Yeah. It's happened in other live reality games. And I'd like to see somebody from one of our seasons make it on. And just, that'd be just the neatest thing to see that next step of the phase, just there it is.
And the true question is, did your performance in Survivor Angelica predict your performance in Survivor CBS?
Yes.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
Well, Jason, Chris, Brett, Jason, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate being able to really dig into both the history of Survivor Angelica, but also a lot of the changes and things you have put into play these past couple years of your current seasons. I've really enjoyed catching the first couple episodes of this season, and I'm excited to see what will come.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
All right.
Stephen.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This was another episode of Behind the Game, starring Survivor Angelica, and hopefully there will be more in the near future. Have a good rest of your night.